Elia's ward had learned long ago not to expect anything good at the edges of known space. The frontier was where forgotten wars ended, where broken ships drifted until they turned into dust, and where only desperate people came looking for scraps. That was why he was there. His small human vessel moved slowly through the debris field of an abandoned alien outpost, its lights cutting through silence that felt older than time. The outpost had once belonged to a minor alien species Elias barely remembered the name of. They were peaceful traders according to old records, no military, no defenses worth mentioning. That usually meant one thing in the galaxy. Elias docked his ship with care. His scanners showed no life signs, but scanners were not perfect, especially around damaged alien tech. He put on his worn pressure suit, checked his sidearm, and stepped into the dark corridor of the station. The air was thin but breathable. Lights flickered weakly, as if the station itself was struggling to stay awake. He moved slowly, boots echoing against metal floors. Signs of violence were everywhere: burn marks on the walls, melted doors, broken equipment scattered like toys. Elias had seen this before too many times. Cleanse, they called it, a clean solution to a political problem. He followed a long corridor toward what looked like living quarters. That was when he smelled it. Death had a smell, no matter the species. He slowed, hand tightening around his weapon, though he knew it was pointless now. The room ahead was wide and open. Furniture was overturned. The ceiling had collapsed in one corner. In the center of the room lay an alien woman. She was tall, her body thin and covered in pale blue skin that had lost its shine. Her clothing was torn, burned in places. One arm was stretched forward, the other curled inward as if protecting something. Elias stopped breathing for a moment, because something moved. A small shape shifted against the alien woman's chest. Tiny fingers twitched. A soft, weak sound escaped, not quite a cry, not quite a breath. "Impossible," Elias whispered. He approached slowly, fear mixing with disbelief. Kneeling beside the body, he saw the child clearly. She was small, maybe the size of a human toddler, but her shape was different. Smooth skin with faint glowing lines. Large dark eyes open and staring at him. She was alive. The alien mother was dead, long dead, but she had used her last strength to shield her child from whatever had come through this station. Elias felt something heavy press into his chest. He had seen dead worlds before. He had stepped over bodies to survive. But this was different. This was quiet, personal. The child made a soft sound again, fear rising as she sensed the stranger. Elias slowly raised his hands, palms open, showing no threat. He didn't know if her species understood gestures, but it was all he had. "It's okay," he said softly, his voice echoing in the ruined room. "I won't hurt you." The child's eyes stayed locked on his face. She didn't scream, she didn't run, she simply watched, trembling. Elias scanned her with his wrist device. Life signs were weak but stable. She was dehydrated, hungry, cold, and marked. His scanner picked up a faint genetic tag embedded deep in her cells. A classification code flashed on his screen, one he hadn't seen in years. Non-viable species. Elias swallowed. Non-viable meant condemned. It meant the Galactic Council had decided that this species had no future value, no strategic use, no political worth. And so quietly, legally, they were erased. He looked back at the dead mother. "You tried," he murmured. "You really tried." Protocol said to report survivors. Protocol said to leave non-viable remains untouched. Protocol said a lot of things that had never saved anyone. The child reached out suddenly, her small hand gripping the front of Elias' suit. The touch was weak but desperate. She made a soft sound, different this time. Not fear, need. That was the moment Elias knew he was already lost. He carefully lifted the child into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her body warm despite everything. She pressed against him instinctively, clinging as if she knew letting go meant death. Elias stood, taking one last look at the room, at the mother who had died alone. at the species that would never speak for itself again. "I won't leave her here," he said to the empty air. The alarm started as soon as he stepped back into the corridor. Red lights flashed. A warning echoed through the station in a harsh alien language. His scanner screamed as multiple signals powered up, automated cleanup drones, the kind that made sure nothing was left behind. Elias ran. He moved as fast as he could without jostling the child. The corridor shook as drones activated behind him, metal limbs scraping against walls. Energy weapons charged, their hum filling the air. He turned corners blindly, trusting the map in his memory. He burst through a hatch and sealed it behind him just as energy fire burned across the door. The metal glowed but held. The child cried softly now, sensing danger. Elias adjusted his grip, holding her close. "I've got you," he said, breathless. "I won't let them take you." He reached his ship and slammed the hatch closed, sealing it just as the station's internal systems began to overload. The ship undocked violently, engines roaring to life. Behind him, the outpost started to tear itself apart, automated systems completing their final task. Erase everything. Elias didn't look back. Once clear, he set a course away from the system, pushing his ship harder than he should. Only when the stars stretched into long lines did he finally slow down. He collapsed into the pilot's seat, exhaustion hitting him all at once. The child lay against his chest, her breathing uneven but steady. She stared up at him, eyes still wide but calmer now. Elias removed his helmet and gently touched her head with his bare fingers. Her skin was smooth, warm, and faintly glowing. "You shouldn't exist," he said quietly. "At least that's what they say." The ship's AI chimed softly. "Unregistered life form detected. Please confirm intent." Elias hesitated. One word could change everything. Once logged, the information could be traced. "Personal responsibility," he said at last. The AI paused, then accepted the input. Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He didn't know where he would take her. Human space was not safe. The council would come looking. They always did. But for now, she was alive. The child shifted, her small fingers curling around one of his. The grip was weak, but it held. Elias closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a scavenger picking at the bones of a cruel galaxy. He felt like someone who had made a choice. And far behind them, in the silent wreckage of a destroyed station, the last record of an erased species faded into nothing, except for the one small life now traveling through the stars, carried by a human who refused to walk away. Elias did not sleep for the first 2 days after. Leaving the ruined outpost, he kept the ship moving, changing routes, jumping through unstable lanes that most pilots avoided. His small vessel groaned under the strain, but it obeyed. It always had. The child stayed close to him, rarely making a sound, her body pressed against his chest or curled beside him in the pilot's seat. He named her nothing. Not yet. Names felt permanent, and nothing about their situation was safe. The ship's medical unit struggled to read her biology. Her organs were arranged differently, her blood chemistry unfamiliar, but the basics were clear. She needed fluids. She needed warmth. She needed constant care. Elias used nutrient gels meant for emergency human use, thinning them, adjusting temperature and texture until she accepted them. The first time she swallowed without coughing, relief washed through him so hard his hands shook. "You're stronger than they think," he said quietly. She watched him as she ate, eyes following every movement. There was no fear in them now, only focus, curiosity. Elias avoided major trade hubs, too many eyes, too many scanners. He stopped only at forgotten refueling stations, places run by old machines and people who didn't ask questions. Still, rumors traveled faster than ships. On the third day, his AI warned him of a shadow following their last jump. A faint signal, military grade. He cursed under his breath. Someone had found the outpost remains, or tracked his ship's signature. Or notice the sudden destruction pattern that only cleanup drones used. It didn't matter how. What mattered was that they were no longer alone. Elias altered course again, diving toward a dense asteroid belt. His ship slipped between spinning rocks, engines low, systems quiet. The child stirred as gravity shifted. She made a small sound, then reached for him, fingers tightening around his sleeve. "I know," he whispered. "Just a little longer." The shadow did not follow into the belt. That worried him more than if it had. Hours later, Elias emerged into open space near an unregistered world. Thin atmosphere, low population, mostly human settlers and mixed species drifters. Not safe, but safer than open space. He landed far from the main settlement, hiding the ship beneath natural rock cover. Inside, he powered down everything non-essential. The child explored the cabin slowly, touching surfaces, tapping gently, learning. She moved with careful balance as if afraid the floor might vanish. Elias watched her from the bench, exhaustion pulling at him. When she stumbled, he reached out without thinking. She caught herself against his leg, then stayed there, leaning into him. After a moment, she sat down at his feet. He laughed softly, surprised by the sound. "I guess that means you trust me." She tilted her head. A faint glow pulsed along the lines in her skin. Not light, more like warmth made visible. Elias spent the night half awake, listening for danger. None came. In the morning he ventured out, carrying the child wrapped inside his coat. He kept his head down, traded spare parts for supplies, and avoided scanners. It almost worked. At the edge of the settlement, a tall alien blocked his path. Broad shoulders, metal implants along the neck, a mercenary. "Human," the alien said calmly, "you're traveling with something valuable." Elias did not stop walking. "You're mistaken," the alien smiled. "Non-viable species, small, rare, council bounty is generous." Elias turned then, eyes hard. "She's a child." "So was the species," the mercenary replied. "Didn't save them." The child shifted inside Elias' coat. The mercenary noticed. His hand moved toward his weapon. Elias moved first. He threw a small flash device at the alien's feet and ran. Light exploded. Shouts rose behind him. Elias pushed his body harder than it wanted to go, lungs burning as he reached the ship. Energy fire scorched the rocks as he sealed the hatch and launched. The ship took a hit, alarms screaming, but the engines held. Once clear, Elias checked the child frantically. She was shaking, eyes wide again. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't want you to see that." She reached up, touching his face with careful fingers. The shaking slowed. Elias stared at her in silence. No alien child he knew of could calm fear like that. No non-viable species should still exist, let alone adapt. As days passed, the pattern repeated. Close calls, narrow escapes, different hunters, some wanted credits, some wanted research samples. Some claimed they were trying to protect galactic stability. Humans were not welcome in most of those conversations, but humans were stubborn. Elias learned to mask signals better. He learned to read her needs without machines. She learned to understand his tone, his expressions. She began making sounds that were not cries, soft tones that changed with emotion. One night, as the ship drifted silently between stars, she pointed at him and made a sound. "Eli," she said slowly. Elias froze. "That's close," he whispered. "Elias." She tried again. "Eli's," he laughed, a real laugh this time, and nodded. "Yes, that's me." She touched her own chest and waited. Elias hesitated, then spoke gently. "I don't know your name." She looked at him, eyes bright, and made a sound that had never passed her lips before. Clear, certain. "Sa," Elias nodded. "Sa," he repeated. "That's a good name." From that moment, Sa changed. She became more active, more aware. Her body adapted to human gravity faster. She slept when Elias slept. She watched stars with him, pointing at distant lights. And the galaxy noticed. A council broadcast reached his ship weeks later. An official notice declaring that a human smuggler was endangering galactic peace by harboring an illegal survivor. Images of Elia's ship followed, a warning to all ports. Sa watched the screen, then looked at Elia's. "They're afraid," he said quietly. "Not of you, of what you prove." He set course for a neutral system, one where laws bent under enough attention. It was risky. It was also their only chance. As they traveled, Sa grew ill. Her breathing slowed. Her skin lost some of its glow. Elias worked desperately, adjusting environments, fluids, everything he could think of. "I won't lose you," he said, voice breaking. "I didn't come this far to fail." Sa's small hand found his, holding tight. When they finally reached the system, Elias was running on nothing but will. Ships surrounded them, council vessels, armed escorts. A message came through, formal, cold: "Surrender the child." Elias held Sa close and straightened his shoulders. "No," he said, and for the first time in his life he did not feel small in the face of the galaxy. He felt human. And Sa, fragile and impossible, lifted her head and looked out at the ships with calm eyes, as if she already knew this was not the end. But the moment everything would change. The ships did not fire. They surrounded Elias' vessel in a wide arc, weapons powered but silent, lights bright against the dark of space. Council markings glowed on their hulls, symbols of authority that had ended more lives than most wars. Elias kept his hands steady on the controls, even as his heart pounded. Sa sat in his lap, small and warm, her head resting against his chest. She was weak but awake. Her eyes followed the movement of the ships with quiet attention. A transmission channel opened. "Human pilot," a voice said, smooth and distant. "You are in violation of council law. Power down your engines and prepare to transfer the non-viable entity in your possession." Elias took a breath. He had known this moment would come. He had replayed it in his mind 1,000 times. Still, when it arrived, it felt unreal. "She has a name," he said calmly. "Her name is Sa." There was a pause. Then another voice joined the channel, sharper, impatient. "Names do not grant legal status." Elias looked down at Sa. She looked back up at him, her fingers curled around his shirt. Her skin glowed faintly, stronger than it had days ago. "She's alive," Elias said. "That should be enough." "Alive does not mean permitted," the first voice replied. "Your species understands this concept. You have exterminated invasive life forms on your own worlds." Elias nodded once. "We stopped when we learned better." Silence followed. The ships held position. "Prepare for boarding," the voice said at last. Elias closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again. He tapped a control, sending a data packet across all open channels. "You should review what I just sent before you do that," he said. "What is this?" another voice asked. "Records," Elias replied. "Council archives, sealed, classified, about my species." The pause this time was longer. Sa shifted. She pushed herself upright, swaying slightly, then placed one small hand on the control panel. Elias watched her, confused, but did not stop her. On the main screen, the council insignia flickered. Sa looked at it, then made a soft sound. The ship systems responded not because she commanded them, but because Elias' AI interpreted her touch as intent. The feed changed. Images filled the screen. Old ones, grainy, human ships from centuries ago, burning cities. Council documents stamped with the same word Elias had seen on Sa's genetic scan. Non-viable. Elias spoke softly, letting the images speak with him. "We were once considered too violent, too unpredictable, too difficult to control." The solution was discussed, quietly. Thoroughly. Council voices from the past echoed through the channel, cold and distant, speaking of containment, reduction, removal. Sa watched, her eyes reflecting the light. "They decided against it," Elias continued. "Not because we deserved mercy, but because someone argued that we might be useful later." The images changed again. Human colonies spreading, humans fighting, humans helping, humans surviving. "We were not erased," Elias said. "Not because we were good, but because we adapted." A new voice broke in, older, careful. "This does not justify your actions." No, Elias agreed, but it explains them. Sa made a sound then, louder than before, not a cry, a call. The sound echoed through the ship, through the open channel. It was simple but layered, carrying emotion that words could not. The glow in her skin brightened, lines pulsing gently. Council instruments reacted, sensors spiked, data streams flooded in. "What is happening?" one voice demanded. Elias stared at the readings. "She's communicating," he said slowly. "Not with words, with patterns." The sound changed, softened. The images on the screen shifted again, this time showing the ruined outpost, the dead mother, the sheltering arms. Then Elias himself, kneeling, reaching out. Sa's small hand tightened on the panel, her breathing steadied, her glow stabilized. "She learned this from us," Elias said, all creeping into his voice. "From how we remember, how we tell stories." The council ships did not move. Minutes passed. Then one ship, larger than the rest, powered forward slightly. Its markings were different, older. "This entity is not static," the elder voice said. "It is changing." "Yes," Elias said, "because she was given time." Sa looked up at him, then back at the screen. She made another sound, quieter. The image shifted again, showing other children of her species, laughing, working, living from before the purge. "They were not finished," Elias said. "They were interrupted." Silence fell across the channel. "You risk galactic stability," the sharp voice said at last, but there was less certainty in it now. Elias leaned back, exhaustion heavy in his bones. "Stability built on graves doesn't last." Sa slumped slightly. Elias caught her, holding her close. Her glow dimmed but did not vanish. "She needs care," he said urgently. "Real care, not containment, not study." The elder voice spoke again. "And if we refuse," Elias met the camera, eyes steady, "then you'll do what you always do, and one day someone will remember." Another pause. This one felt different. The elder ship powered down its weapons. "Stand by," the voice said. "Deliberation in progress." Time stretched. Elias focused on Sa's breathing, slow and shallow but steady. He whispered to her, not knowing if she understood the words, only the tone. "You did good," he said. "You were very brave." Sa's fingers moved weakly, touching his wrist. Finally, the channel opened again. "The council recognizes a conditional error," the elder voice said. "This entity will not be classified as non-viable." Elias' breath caught. "She will be granted protected status under human custodianship," the voice continued, "on the condition that her development is observed, not controlled." Elias nodded quickly. "That's all I ever wanted." "There will be consequences," the sharp voice added, "political, social." Elias allowed himself a small, tired smile. "We're used to that." The ships began to move away, forming a corridor through the stars. As Elias guided his ship forward, Sa stirred. Her eyes opened fully, clear and calm. The glow returned, soft and steady. She made a sound, gentle and warm. Elias laughed quietly, tears blurring his vision. "Yeah," he said, "we made it." They traveled to human space, not to cities or councils, but to a quiet world with wide skies and clean air. A place where Sa could rest, where her body could heal. Humans came to see her not as a symbol but as a child, curious, careful, kind. Sa grew stronger. She learned to walk under open sunlight. She learned human words and human laughter. Elias stayed with her, always nearby, not as an owner or a savior, but as family. The galaxy watched. Some feared what she represented, others hoped. Elias often thought of the alien mother on the cold station floor, of the arms that had protected Sa until the very end. "She didn't die for nothing," he would say quietly, watching Sa play beneath alien trees. "She trusted the universe." And the universe answered through a human. Sa would look up at him then, eyes bright, and smile in her own way. And across the stars, a simple truth spread, slow but unstoppable. Humans do not abandon the helpless, and sometimes that is enough to change the fate of the galaxy.